Yeah, just read that. Doing it. Okay.
So it's 7 p.m. and we're here for the annual State of the Town meeting. According to Charter 2.1.4.1, it's to review the State of the Town report, to review the 5-year capital plan, and to receive the annual report of the permanent boards, commissions, agencies, committees, and the town's auditor report. There was a annual or legal notice for the annual town meeting on February 5th, 2026, and it read, an annual town meeting of the electors and citizens there qualified in the town meetings of the town of Madison, Connecticut, will be held on Wednesday, February 11th, 2026, at 7 p.m. in town campus, 8 Campus Drive, Madison Room C, and remote Zoom for the following purpose: was A, review the state of the town report, B, review the 5-year capital plan, and C, to receive the annual report of the permanent boards and commissions, agencies, committees, and the town's auditor report in accordance with Article 2, Section 2.1.4.1 of the town charter. And the annual reports and auditor reports will be approved and received. First, Selectwoman Peggy Lyons is here to present the presentation on all this, and we can answer questions afterwards. We do ask that if you're speaking, to please give your name and your address, and we ask that you please keep your questions or comments to the 2 minute requirement from the Board of Selectmen policy. So we will start. Thank you.
Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. So I'm here to present the State of the Town report. What we're going to cover today, if you want to go to the next slide, is community strengths and challenges, the progress that we've been doing in town over the last year, the budget trends we've had, looking at our debt profile, the status of major projects going on, and our upcoming initiatives. I highlighted here just some items from our strategic plan, because a lot of what we do here in town is really try to adhere to those guidelines that the town has laid out, and how it wants its resources managed and investments made to kind of align to some of these this community vision that we have, as well as our town mission. So I just kind of highlighted those things again for you, and that strategic plan is available on the town website for all of you to do. Community strengths. I mean, I think we live in a wonderful town that we'll go to the next slide. We live in a beautiful place, and I think every day I wake up being very grateful that I get to live in such a wonderful community. And it's naturally beautiful, but it's also, there's great people that live here. And we have a great school system. We do have low density living, which I know we learned in COVID was a very important hot commodity that people really appreciated living out in a town like ours, with 44% of our land deeded open space. We have a lot of outdoor amenities, including our beaches, many parks and trails. We also have access to world-class healthcare within a half hour of New Haven, and we have a lot of local services to support our residents. We also have a vibrant downtown. We have a downtown that has a lot of small businesses and it's active, and so we're fortunate to have that. A lot of small towns, sometimes that's an area where they struggle to keep their downtowns vibrant, but with the bookstore and the movie theater and all these things. We have really good public services. I think people have very high standards here in Madison, and I think our staff does a great job trying to reach and meet those standards. And we have a very educated and adaptable workforce. Our community is engaged, very involved. It was interesting hearing from the consultant that's working on the Surf Club Master Plan. Gave a presentation the other day, and he said he'd never seen such community engagement in one of his master plans before. So we're setting a very high bar, and we do get a lot of people involved. This is probably not the best example of community involvement. For some reason, this doesn't get a lot of people to come to the state of the town, but I can tell you there was a lot of people here an hour ago when we had a public hearing for the new Madison train station. So when there's something of interest for people, people come out and they participate. So that's a great thing. We have a very good economic profile, high median household income, low unemployment, a robust small business community, and we still have a very strong real estate market. And we have strong town finances, AAA bond rating. We have, I think, a mill rate that is actually quite incredible relative to a lot of our peers in the area. We have a lower mill rate. And we've done a really good job of managing that. And we've been able to attract a lot of outside funds from the state and federal government to support a lot of initiatives in town. But we also have our challenges, and sometimes those great things also create challenges. Affordability is one of those things. With the strong real estate market, real estate values going up, the cost of living in Madison is expensive, and that does create a lot of hardships for people living in town. There's also a lot of economic uncertainty happening right now. I think versus the changing federal policies, investment. We are kind of a feeder town to academic institutions, the healthcare system. All these things are being impacted by some of the federal policies that are going on. And then in addition to that, tariffs have had an impact on cost of living for people in Madison. Lack of housing diversity and choice. And this has kind of come up multiple times, either through our affordable housing plan or through our strategic plan. Everybody loves low density living. They love having all this outdoor space, but then it's hard because it makes things less affordable for people, and it makes it harder for us to offer different kinds of housing options for people. We're 95% single family. So there's a big effort, obviously, to try to rethink that and how we tackle housing here. But there's a concern about increased density and development. The conversation is heavy about trees in this town, and what cost does development have for us as an environmental cost and just the quality of life cost for our residents. So those are all things we're kind of working through. There's going to be a need to update our zoning regulations. We're going through that process right now. There's a big housing bill that was passed by the state. So we're going to have to comply with that and see how we incorporate that into our zoning regulations and how we move forward with our housing policies. We have limited public infrastructure. Most people are on septic systems. And we don't have public water in a large part of our state. So our town. So a lot of people have wells. And then our transportation, I would say, we have Shoreline East, but it's limited service. And we don't have a lot of bus service in town. We have a microtransit program right now that we're hoping to continue funding for, that it makes it more accessible for everybody in this town, but we don't have a lot of public transportation. We're also a coastal community. And so we're really starting to feel the impacts of climate change. Climate change is causing rising sea levels. It's causing more frequent storms. We're seeing the impact on our roadways. We're seeing it on our beaches. And more flooding, more unpredictability, more trees falling, hitting and impacting electricity. So all that stuff is really starting to hit us in the wallet as a town and impacting our quality of life and changing how we view things. And part of that conversation will come through our surf club master planning process as well. How do we protect our beaches better, make sure they're going to be here for the future? And then I think we're kind of catching up on a lot of investment for a long time. The town didn't prioritize updating its facilities. And we've made a big initiative over the last 5 or 6 years to do that. And so we're kind of playing catch up. So we've had a big influx. We've done some bonding, especially with the schools, and try to work through what are we going to do with these buildings, these aging buildings, and how do we make those decisions. And then as similar all to Connecticut, we do have an aging population. Although we are seeing an influx of young families, but the overall average age of Madison still continues to lean more towards an aging population, which is a demographic trend across the state. The progress, I would say, I kind of organized this, and I won't read everything on here, but it gives you an idea, and I put it in kind of the categories as part of our key focus areas in our strategic plan. So there's a lot of initiatives, and the board actually got a report about how the town has been implementing the strategic plan in December. And I've heard people watch that just to show that we just didn't do this plan and put it on the shelf. That the staff is really thinking about how their projects align with everything in the strategic plan. So if you look at some of the categories, high performing government, we continue to have an excellent school system and win even more accolades with, more recently, all of Madison Public Schools achieved a Schools of Distinction notation at the state level. The planning process that we go into, that's a high-performing government, long-term planning. The town has never had a facilities plan, and the goal here is to have a 10-year roadmap about what to do with all our buildings and prioritize our spending and make sure we're meeting our needs. The Surf Club obviously has been a hot topic, and that's an important process that we're going through. So all of these things under financial, sustainability. I think the Madison investment plan is that long-term thinking, looking over the next 5 years. How do we keep everything funded appropriately without having spikes in the mill rate, and using all the tools in our toolbox to make sure that we can do that? And that's something that has really helped us, I think, maintain our financial health and strength and sustainability. We've also achieved sustainability certifications from the state for different projects. We have a big initiative for having green infrastructure. We now have 3 buildings in town that have geothermal systems. The library, this building, it was completed last year, and then Neck River Elementary opened up. So reducing our carbon footprint. And we'll hope to start to see savings in that in the long run as we continue to see energy prices increase. We established a tree advisory committee that was out of a lot of concern from residents about development and the impact it was having on our tree canopy. So try to address that and see how we can be better at actively managing the trees in our town. And then we've done a lot with our infrastructure. We did a road paving study last year to look at the ratings of our roads, and now we want to make a big investment, taking some money from the fund balance and trying to upgrade the level of road paving that we do over the next couple of years in town. We've had state-of-the-art elementary school, sidewalk projects. These are all things that we're doing to make sure that we have the best infrastructure in town. On the next slide, safe and healthy community. The police social worker position we just added to the budget this last year. That's been a huge success, connecting people that are going through family crises to resources and try to get them, out of the kind of police channels of communication into where they can get help. And so that has been a huge win, making those investments. Meals on Wheels, our new shelter, is going to be opening next year. We're installing a new generator at Polson, so we have a better emergency shelter so we can provide a safe place for people to go during storm events. And then I would say thriving business economy. One of the topics around the academy expression of interest proposals is how can we help economic development in town. So that's going to generate a lot of conversations about how can the town help facilitate and create more economic activity. We have a tax incentive policy that we're looking to make broader to encourage and help businesses. And then I talked about the microtransit program, which we're hoping to get extended past June of this year. That was funded by the state. That's helped residents connect to employment opportunities. It's helped those people that don't have access to regular transportation, and then they can actually get to their jobs more easily if they live in parts of the town that it's difficult to get to the train station or to bus service. So these are all things that we've been doing that shows progress and that it aligns with what the residents told us they want us to do. So these are my goals or the staff's goals. This is what we've heard from the community they want us to focus on. In terms of budget trends, a lot of numbers on there, but I think overall just highlighting that we've done everything we can to keep the town operating budget growing at a minimal rate as possible. When you think about how inflation has been going on since really 2022, when we started to see the huge spike in inflation, we've kept the operating budget growing at a lower rate than inflation over the last 4 years, I would say. And every year it's decreased its growth rate. Yes, it is growing. I know a lot of people would love to see it just flat. But, we do have 70% of our budget is personnel costs. So it's salaries and it's healthcare. Healthcare is growing at 20+%. So in order to still keep the overall thing not growing at crazy numbers, you have to manage that budget, make decisions. And I think we've done everything we can to try to keep that operating budget within a reasonable limit. Obviously, part of our expense is what the town wanted us to do, go out and bond to invest in our schools. So that was a decision made by the residents of this town to commit part of the funding and to pay for the debt service on those bonds for our new schools. So that we've seen a big increase. So as we've seen the interest expense grow on the debt that we've taken on, we're trying to keep the overall pie not growing that much. So that means we're having to focus on expense reduction. So it's not growing as fast. So I think we've been pretty successful at that. If you look at the mill rate, I mean, the boards have always tried to keep the mill rate, which is the tax rate, growing at a lower amount. The last couple of years, I mean, I think my first year in office, we had no mill rate change. That was during COVID, an extraordinary situation, but we were able to have no change in the mill rate. And then over the last 3 to 4 years, we've tried to keep that increase in the mill rate below 2%. So that tax rate, your property value might have gone up because that has happened. So your tax bill goes up, but how we're taxing you is not changed. It's actually grown at a very small rate. And I will say that compares very favorably if you look at other countries. So I think overall the town's doing well in terms of budget management and able to deliver a lot without a huge expansion of the budget. The next slide just talks about the debt, as I mentioned, because I know a lot of residents are concerned about this. This is part of the bonding that was approved during the Madison Madison School Renewal Plan. And we've been doing a series of issuances. You don't want to issue it all at once. I think it was $89 million was approved at referendum. You don't want to do everything at once. You want to issue those bonds when you need it, because these projects take 3 to 5 years to really implement and go through a construction period. So every year we've been doing, we've issued long-term bonds and we've issued short-term bonds just to get us to the cash flow that's needed for the construction project. So we did another, that was our third issuance, right? In December. Stacey, third? Was there a third? Yeah. Fourth. It was our fourth year of doing bond issuance. They've been, number one thing is they've been, highly competitive process, and we got great rates on them. Each time we've done an issuance, we've also every year got our credit rating affirmed AAA, the highest you can get. And I think it just is a testament to the quality of the town. So that's been, if you're going to issue debt, this is the best kind of circumstances to be issuing debt. So, but it's helped us accomplish a lot that's been needed to get done. And I will say we're going to be peaking out in around 2030 in terms of that debt service. So as that debt service, you see those bars going up, that's eating it, that's impacting the budget. But that number is growing more than the budget's growing because we're controlling expenses. So I just want to highlight that. Next slide is just the capital improvement plan. This is the plan, and there's a lot more information on the website. We have a CIP committee that goes through a process. Starts out that the town submits a recommended capital plan from my office in October, goes to the CIP committee, and the CIP committee deliberates for 2 months, and then they basically recommend onto the boards a 5-year capital. And you can see kind of the breakdown of where these projects are funded. Or not funded, where the expenditures are going to be in each year. But keep in mind, there's a difference between funding the capital plan and spending out of the capital plan. One is like a savings account because you have these future expenses that you're going to have. This is showing you what the actual spending for the project. So, but it's broken out. There's a lot of different things that we spend money on in terms of capital projects. So, road paving, new fire trucks, athletic field. So there's a lot of detail behind this, but I think it shows that we're still trying to get ahead of things. You don't want to kick the can down the road, which is an expression that's used a lot. You want to tackle things when you can so that you don't have, to have to play catch up like we've been having to do over the last couple of years. So we're trying to stay on top of this with the capital plan. Next slide is just, I'll highlight progress on these projects. I mean, I think the good thing is that we're getting a lot done. I mean, it was because we've also been very aggressive at going after projects and we could get state money. And so the town was only paying a portion for a lot of these projects. And big one that got accomplished this last summer was the completion of Garden Point, which I think was a great project, well needed, and it's a beautiful testament, I think, to public spaces. I think it's came out wonderful, and that was completed in May, and that had been in the capital plan. I want to say 10 years, but maybe 10 years is a little bit too long, but it was in there for quite a while. So, and it wasn't without the help of the state, who gave us a $770,000 grant that we could actually fund the rest of the project. It was $1.5 million project, so the town obviously spent a lot of money on this, but we were able to partner with the state to get this done. The new elementary school just opened in 2025 this summer. I mean, it's amazing they got this done quickly, despite starting this project during COVID and all these supply chain issues and everything else. But it's a beautiful school, and I encourage people. We're trying to have a lot of public meetings there, so the public can come in and take a look at the school. Encourage you to check it out. We had to replace the rooftop units. The Daniel Hand High School is no longer the new high school. It's 20 years old, and we're starting to see things that are failing or need to be replaced. So that was a big project. Flintlock Bridge. This was one that was actually funded through state state funding, and that it was just completed this fall. We did the turf project at the girls softball field. And then on the other side, it's just showing the ones that are kind of in the pipeline are going to be happening hopefully in 2026. The firehouse EOC project, that actually did start with construction. We're hoping that's going to be done this summer. And that was a combination of appropriation, CIP, and a federal grant. And then we've had a couple of sidewalk projects. Those are mostly being funded with state funding through LOTSA. And these are exciting projects that I know people are. One of the things we heard in the strategic plan over and over again, and we need more sidewalks, we need more accessibility, we need more connectivity. And so these are in very targeted areas. It's not trying to sidewalk all of Madison and every neighborhood, but it's in areas where there's a high density of people, bike and pedestrian activity. And so it improves safety and it creates greater accessibility for people. Scotland Avenue, we're hoping to get that funded through a state grant. We're in the process of that. And the design, I think, is being finalized. The Polson upgrades, which was part of the Madison renewal plan, that is starting construction finally. I'm sure if anybody here has kids in that area, they know they've blocked it all off area, the drop-off area for equipment. That will mean that air conditioning will finally be throughout that entire building. It's amazing to think that we didn't have that at our middle school, but we will have that. And the auditorium upgrades, which if we've all been to meetings there in the last 2 or 3 years, we recognize how tired that facility was, duct tape all over the place, broken chairs. So it'll be very exciting to see that happen. That project also includes a generator that will allow us to have a better, more cohesive emergency shelter, which right now is in our town gym. There's no kitchen facilities, limited bathroom facilities, and there's no air conditioning. So in August, when you have a hurricane in August and it's 90 degrees, that was a really tough place to have people go. So we're excited to see that moving forward. And then we have the Madison Center project, which is the phase 3 piece, which is basically continuing these roadway improvements or sidewalk improvements from the firehouse down to Route 79. This is another 20-year plus project in the making that we're hoping to finally get into the final phase and get that done. So I think hats off to the staff. This has been a huge undertaking to get these things moving as much as they have and to see them through. So I think they've done a great job. It's great to see these things kind of happen. Next slide is just talking about unknowns that are impacting the capital plan. One is obviously Academy. And we're going through that process right now. The board has asked staff to come back with diligence items, looking at the different 4 proposals that we received. Staff is going to be telling us a little bit more about zoning issues, septic, all these questions that came up in the presentations. We're also obviously, one of the items that's been discussed is the demolition of the building. And then the board has opted to actually start looking at okay, if you demolished it, what would a park cost? Because that's one of the public ideas that have been really advocated lately is just to tear the building down and make a park. So, and then we have these grants, and I know there's been several of the proposals have opted to use that grant money for their projects, but we have to make some decisions about do we want to reappropriate that if we can to another project in town. So those will be conversations about what we do with those, because we have almost $8 million in grants that were awarded to Academy. And I just want to highlight again that any final action is going to be determined by the people of Madison. This is what you want from this building. And so there will be an opportunity to vote in some way on how we move forward with Academy. We also have the facilities master planning process, which started about 2 years ago when we put the committee, but was really talked about 4 years ago, because as we struggled with Academy, I don't know if people remember Island Avenue, it was how do we make decisions in silos on these things, because all of these buildings impact others. And so the decision was we really need to start this master planning process. So we're going through that process. I encourage everybody to follow it closely. There was an interim report that was just provided by the committee. And it talks about, you know, how we can repurpose Jeffrey, what we can do. We put together an inventory now of all town-owned land, which we never had. It was kind of an interesting exercise to understand all the property the town of Madison owns. And so that will ultimately lead to like a 10-year, 20-year roadmap of where we want to be with our facilities, and then we will prioritize decisions along the way. So I know some people have looked at this and said, this is crazy, all this stuff, and it's going to cost money. This is just a vision. And then I think we go through a public process to prioritize and decide how we're going to fund it. But it's better to have a roadmap, so to speak, than to keep going building by building, which is what the town has done historically. So we're trying to be thoughtful and have a plan for us to follow. And then, as I mentioned, the Surf Club Master Plan is in full swing right now, and we've had great public participation. They're expecting probably in March or April timeframe to come back with some options of what you could do at the Surf Club and what some recommendations might be. And then another big unknown is the town garage, which is a big project. In order to do anything with the Surf Club, we're going to have to relocate the building and grounds, which is that maintenance facility there. We also really have a very outdated facility for a public works department. And it just is not adequate to serve the needs of a modern, responsive public works department. So we're looking at trying to combine those operations and how you would do that and what that would cost. So that's another kind of important project that we have to make some decisions on. Doesn't mean we're going to do this all at once, but at least we'll have, you know, a plan, and we'll have a target of what we want to do, and then we figure out how we can fund it and implement it over a 10-year horizon. So on the next slide is just initiatives. I think finishing these plans, which are priorities certainly for the Board of Selectmen. Some of these key strategic projects, just get the construction done on these. They're exciting, and hope to see those be successful this next year. Academy, obviously, as I said, we want to finally bring this to resolution. It's always been a goal, but there's, it's a complicated one, but we're hoping we're going to get there. Housing is going to be a big conversation this year between what the state is now requiring with this housing bill, with the and then the fact that the town is going through its zoning regulation process, updating its zoning regulations. I think and then some of the activities by the Affordable Housing Committee, they've asked the town to set up a housing trust fund. So these are all going to be big conversations I think we're going to be having as a community over the next year. And then just from an operational standpoint, we're always looking to improve, looking at AI, which is obviously impacting the business community, it's impacting government. How we're going to try to implement or use that as a tool in town government. That's going to be a big initiative that I've been talking to our technology director about. We're always looking at efficient ways to align departments. And then I think just the Madison investment plan, try to stay true to that as much as we can, because that financial discipline has helped serve as well. And then finally, I just wanted to put in a plug for our 200th birthday. So I also want to encourage everybody to really participate in our celebration. We have a great community. We have a committee that is the Madison 200 America 250 committee, because it's also our, I can't even say it, second centennial, which is the 250th for the country. But the committee has got a lot of great things planned over the next, probably mostly starting like this spring. And they're also fundraising. They're looking for volunteers. So I just think this is an opportunity, no matter what our political affiliation, our religious affiliation, our backgrounds, our economic situation, we can all celebrate this town because I think everybody loves our town. And this is a way to kind of come together and do that. So I encourage people to go to the website. The last slide just shows there was a mailer that was sent out by the committee just to kind of make you aware of this. And there also was a QR code. This is linked to a donation site if you want to donate to the Madison 200 Fund. This is going to help fund activities throughout the year. And I just want to, I think it's a great opportunity to just really do something positive for the community and just, you know, come together and celebrate a great town. So that is kind of my presentation. And happy to take some questions. I guess we could maybe start here in the room and then go online. If there's anybody here in the room that would like to ask a question, this will be available also on the website. There's not a lot of numbers in here. Just I also do a budget presentation in 2 weeks. That's a lot more digging into the budget and all that. This is not about the budget. This is just more kind of the big picture thing for the town. So if there's any financial questions about upcoming budget, that will be handled with budget public hearing.
Maybe it's the strategic plan that you mentioned, is that available online?
Yes, it's on the town website. And it used to be a button on the bottom on the front page. If not, just put it in the search bar and it'll come up. And you can, it's a PDF you could download. Any other questions here now? Any hands raised online?
Wait, there were some.
No. Were they not able to hear?
No, they could.
Okay.
sound themselves, actually. I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Well, I don't know, the last presentation got applause, so that was we're on a roll, but I was Miss Lisa. Okay. All right, well, thank you for that, and you can always email my office if something comes up. I encourage people to just read this, and it helps you get an idea of all the great things going on in town. So thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.